I want to know, maybe we could start. I have like a special treat for everyone today. Especially the people who came all the way from England to join with us tonight.
Wow.
And therefore I figured if they came all the way from England, might as well give them like a secret, unlock one of the secrets that will change or radically alter all of our lives for the better. So that's a pretty steep, difficult task. But I think that tonight we could discuss something that could really not only change our view, but radically improve our lives in many separate areas. And therefore, I say maybe it's worth to like listen. And I'm not saying my own ideas. I'm saying ideas that have been part of the Jewish collective wisdom for thousands of years. And therefore, I'm sharing the recipes that were tried and proven for success in these areas. So therefore, I said I'm just going to share the idea. You hear it. We could debate it out. We love debate, love polemics. Everyone knows that. And maybe this could like really alter our lives in a positive way. Is that awesome?
That sounds great.
Sounds great?
Yeah, I love.
Okay, so I'm going to start with something with a very problematic Torah verse, and it's maybe the most problematic, certainly the most famous of all 5,845 verses of the Torah.
She's revealing the secret.
Oh, I love this girl. Okay, so Leviticus 19. Look at that. She's just a performer. Miriam, play games? Oh, pretty awesome. Okay, Miriam. Go to mommy. I love you, sweetie. Okay, Leviticus 19. Sorry.
Says you shall not kick out your daughter from the
Leviticus 19. You should love your fellow as yourself. This is just I think it's the most famous verse in the Torah. Is there anyone that's more famous? I don't think so. It's the rallying cry of multiple religions. We have a statement in the Talmud, famous statement. Hillel says, "I want to learn the entire Torah on one leg." What does he tell him? Love thy neighbor as thyself. And it's a very important sentence, and it's very problematic. I think that we could all agree, if we were to analyze it for a little bit, we'll say that there's a major philosophical problems with this verse. Anyone wants to guess what the problems are? Jason, what you got?
Let's see. No pressure.
No pressure. Okay.
I'll guess. It's a more fun.
I'm sorry, I hate to put people on the spot. The Torah has given us a commandment. Is this commandment different than any other commandment? Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt love your neighbor as thyself.
I guess this one is not definitive. It's how much you love yourself and why should you treat others as you treat yourself. Like if you don't even.
So what if you don't love yourself? Is that the question? Well, that's a very good question. And another thing that you alluded to is it's a very strange metric to use. You should love someone. Well, how much? 10%, 20%? As much as yourself. It's a very strange metric to use. You should say love them a lot. And, that's when the Torah says to love someone a lot.
You might not have time to treat others as much as you spoil yourself. So, yeah.
But I think there's even a more fundamental problem. And that is that there's a commandment. And the Torah can command us to do things. And like it does multiple times, many hundreds of times. But here it's I think the only commandment, maybe there's another one, for an emotion. How could you give someone a commandment to have a certain emotion? You can command someone to give money, you command someone to do work, to not do work, to bring a sacrifice, to not bring a sacrifice, to not steal, to not murder. That is all something that person could do. But let's say there's someone that you just don't like. How could this emotion be commanded to us? Is that a problem? I think that's and the Torah is telling us, just like all the other mitzvahs, all the other commandments in the Torah, this is just yet another one. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Love your fellow as yourself. Love them a lot to a great to a great degree, right? As much as yourself, whatever that means. How is it possible? How is it fair to tell us, to command us to have a certain emotion?
Well, there might be something.
Yeah.
There might be something to it from psychology that we learn about attribution.
Did you? Yeah.
So, like, when we do something, if we do something wrong, we say, "Oh, I wasn't thinking straight," or "Oh, I was tired," or there's always some excuse that we let ourselves off the hook. And so maybe it could be like an extension of that, to where, like, if you see someone doing something or something like that, you give them the benefit of the doubt and you try and attribute their behavior to something other than.
So you're saying like judge people favorably.
Yeah.
So you're saying you're trying to take the emotion as indicated in the verse and translate that to an activity.
Yeah.
Means like let's say someone has an anger problem. Right? Or let's say someone is impatient, or someone has any one of the character melodies that we're all born with. Right? The Torah can't blame me for things that I have innately. I'm an angry person. The Torah maybe blame me to act upon that anger. Right? But to blame me for my anger, right? To blame me for an emotion that's inborn, that's unreasonable. Or perhaps that's unreasonable. It seems just for the Torah to command me to not do an action or to yes do an action, but to have an emotion or to not have an emotion seems like it's unfair. You either got it or you don't have it.
But love isn't exactly an emotion.
Ooh, okay, Dan. Okay.
You can love someone that you don't like. You can. There's. I don't know what category, but there's action and there's something.
Everyone agrees that love's not an emotion. Is love an emotion? You sure love's not an emotion?
Being in love is an emotion, but
Huh?
what is love? What is love?
Oh, what is love?
Chemical reaction. You can argue that love is also a chemical reaction, and that
Well, that's what we're saying. It's inborn. It's innate.
like love as in a romance, like between a married couple, you can say that's companionship because you actually work for it versus the chemical reaction going on, like the elation from the chemical reaction in the brain that love causes.
Yeah, but that while being true, I do believe it's true. Is it possible to have a formula for it? I want to argue that based upon this verse, the Torah clearly outlines, or at least informs us, that there is a formulaic method to loving someone. There's something that you could do to love someone. Otherwise, it's unreasonable. It's unreasonable to claim, or someone that I don't like their personality, or I don't like the way they look, or I don't like something about them. And and if that's a permanent barrier between me loving that person, well, then you can't possibly, fairly, in a fair world, in a just world, command me to love that person. But if there's a formula to love, it's quite reasonable to say you have to love someone.
I think maybe that's kind of what I was trying to say, is that, like, it's positive regard. So that even if there's something, a quality that you don't like, you can always say, I don't like that about the person, but the person themselves, I love that person, I just don't appreciate their actions or how they react to certain things. Because it's the same way with ourselves. Like, when we do something that's not very nice or that we don't like, we are very easy to say, oh, that's not part of my real character, that's not really who I am, my maintenance. There's always like a justification for it. But when we look at someone else, we're like, oh, that person's just a liar, oh, that person just whatever. You know what I mean? So, like, we're more likely to attribute that to who they are inside their soul, like inside of who they are.
And not to try to rationalize for someone else.
Right.
Means we rationalize for ourselves, but we don't give other people the same treatment. Is that nice?
Malevolence aside, I think it's more to do with institutionalization of that kind of love, the things that we associate with love, like respect and compassion, camaraderie.
See, that's a man talking. Love, respect.
In a way, they say we have to respect the right, and by the rules of the United States, we have to respect the right to hate speech as free speech. It's a form of expression. We don't like what they're saying. We don't agree with what they're saying. But by the nature of the paradigm, you have to respect that freedom of theirs so that it's reciprocated from you or to you.
Okay, but is that really the emotion that we're talking about? That seems like a right.
It's in the framework of it, not necessarily the details of the emotion or what constitutes loving, the action, but just in general, hey, look, there's an establishment of positivity, and it's the commandment is that you reciprocate that or you respect it.
So you're saying it's not beckoning us to have this emotion.
Not necessarily.
So we have like a multiple opinions here on the table. What do you say, Jason?
Well, I'm calling one thing you said. I may be getting us off the topic again. Like you do. You said that there may be a formula for love. It's my question. We're commanded to love God, and we're commanded to love our neighbors. That's the same formula.
That's true.
That's very interesting. And that's just the next thing on my notes here. It says 4 words. You shall love God. Deuteronomy 6. Once again, a commandment, and this seems even a little bit more far-fetched. You got to love God, right? What do we know about God? Nothing, almost, right? We can't relate to Him. It's all anthropomorphisms. It's all, it's very difficult for us to have an emotional response to the idea of God. We can have an intellectual understanding of it, but the emotion seems to be very difficult. So that obviously exacerbates the question. But maybe if there's a formula, maybe there's a way to figure it out. Is this making anyone else nervous?
I'm good. I'm going to put it away.
It's fine.
I've circulated a couple times.
You're doing great.
No, it's fine.
I don't like being taped either.
I'm just getting warmed up here.
Oh yeah, no.
He posts on videos.
Yeah, he posts on.
This guy?
Yeah, I do videos. But they let no one in the room and I have to
You did a couple of times.
No, I just do once.
One take? That's it? One take?
Yeah, I
take?
do one take. Yeah, one take Jake. Who's that?
People
And
like to
there was this one
take
video that I made. I'm sorry getting sidetracked. I was in my brother's study where we do some of the videos, and there was a chauffeur there. And he's like, hey, I'm like, wow, this is a nice prop. Why don't I use this prop for a video? So I took the chauffeur and I made believe that I had a horn. It was like a spur of the moment. I spent literally 5 minutes. And then I didn't stop hearing from it in the neighborhood. I was like, oh, the horn, the chauffeur. It's just, you never know what's going to be your legacy, right?
Where's that video?
It's on YouTube, I think.
Jewish horn came out, perpetuated.
Whatever.
Oh, yeah, the stereotypes.
Okay. So I want to argue that perhaps, please, you got take some food. I want to argue perhaps that there's a formula for love. And if we learn the formula, then not only can we love everyone else, but even the people that we already love or we want to love, we could learn the tools to maintaining that love, to nourishing that love, to sustaining that love. Because all too often, it's a sad fact that in our society, they just did a refresh on the data of divorce.
Right.
But it's disastrous, and that only accounts for the people that were able to afford the divorce attorneys, right? Pretty expensive. I was in New Jersey, and I see like a huge sign. There's 2 signs, like one what's it called? Bankruptcy, $999, and there's another one, divorce, $499. It's pretty expensive. You have those people that are married or have made a decision to live the rest of their lives together, and they have separate bedrooms, separate bank accounts, separate television remotes, and separate lives. So we see so many instances where there is love and the love gets lost, and love goes awry. Maybe if we learn the formula for acquiring and maintaining love, this won't happen to us. And we'll learn the key. We're about to love every individual, but more importantly, the people that are part of our lives, people that are part of our families, the people that are part of our communities, the people that we decide to spend the rest of our lives with. Those people, those relationships could be strengthened or could be developed or strengthened, maintained, and God forbid, not lost. So that's why I think it's so important. That's why I think it's such a critical, pivotal, crucial, fundamental. Trying to think of another. Fundamental. I said fundamental. The point of discussion. I think, we talk about these divorce numbers, and no one asks themselves. We have to ask the basic questions. what are the reasons why relationships go south? Well, it's oftentimes has to do with they fell out of love. Well, they fell in love. If they just some of you fall, it's like it's amazing how people maintain the silly notions that we were taught, like from 1930s Disney movies, that there's some magic and there's like the Cupid and oh gosh, the Cupid now shot the secretary. We're toast, right? It's so silly. Is that really what it's about? It's about some silly mythology. It just happens. You fall. You just trip. You trip in love. Is that what really happens? Still, it's misery, and it's not fun for anyone involved.
People willing to work at it.
Yeah, so I have, I think that is indeed one of the reasons for divorce. I think there's actually 5 reasons. I don't know specifically about the love aspect. We'll try to keep it to just that: how to develop love, how to maintain the love. But love doesn't happen. You don't fall. That's for sure. That's silly. It's silly for us to maintain that notion. Something just happens. It's like I was speaking to one of my brothers-in-law who's dating. He was dating. Gosh, I hope he doesn't listen to this audio tape. I'm recording it, by the way. Sorry. If you want me to erase it, I'll consider. So he was dating this girl, and he was like, I don't know, I really like her, but I don't know what's supposed to happen. He was waiting for some download, something to just to click. Like I said, nothing clicks. Nothing happens. There's no magic. It doesn't exist. We were sold a bag of goods. Yeah, Josh, what you got? You didn't raise your hand there? No. Sorry. Picking up a peanut. Anyhow. So. If he tried upgrading his software, maybe he had the.
iOS 7, that was a mistake.
Either that or he had Android gingerbread or honeycomb.
What's that?
That's Android, whatever. People who like Android. It's it's an operating system that powers 80% of the world's.
You often don't date long enough to fall in love.
Huh? What?
What? Well, you said you don't fall in love right away. It's a process. And the Orthodox dating.
Well, okay, fine. So who says that you have to fall in love before you get married? I would argue that maybe it's better if it doesn't. Maybe better if you get married and then you fall in love, right? Well, we can look. Okay, Josh. Let's look at the data now. You brought up the Orthodox. I don't know what that term means. I don't like that term. I don't like divisive terms. But the observant, the more observant of the Jewish community, right? Who have a more truncated dating, and they get married, and then get married like me when I was 20 years old, and I have 4 kids. I'm only 26, and I feel like I'm 150 years old. Like me, right?
You don't look it.
Oh, thanks.
You look so young.
I look like a spry 75. I know. They already found gray hairs, and that's it. It's all downhill. Anyhow, but the data clearly shows that however people are dating, it's not working out. Right? If you have 60, 70% of people that are miserable with their marriages, clearly something is wrong. Now, there's only scant information as to the actual divorce numbers in the minor sliver of the sect, in the Jewish community. But anecdotal evidence seems to indicate that the divorce rate is actually much lower, substantially lower. It's anecdotal. It's not hasn't been substantiated by hard data. But how do we get into this? Sorry if I'm rambling.
Being in love not a condition then for?
I would argue that it's not.
Huh? It's neither prerequisite nor condition staying happy.
Well, I think that it has to be the groundwork, the framework for love. I think love develops.
He said for staying married.
Oh, for staying married.
I think you're talking about getting married in the first place.
Oh yes, yeah, for sure. Well, the marriage ought to result in love, and
why are these marriages resulting in love, but marriages without love don't?
Marriages that. I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So the first suggestion...
Slow it down for me, Josh.
Marriages that started with love and lost it. Your suggestion is often
No, I'm not. I wasn't pushing a certain agenda. I'm just talking about the emotion of love. How do you get it? How do you lose it? Okay. I'm not trying to push any agenda on how to date. That's a totally different discussion. Never push agendas. Never. What I want to argue is like this. So you ask, what's the definition of love? Okay. The Torah gives us a definition of love. I'm going to read it to you. I have it written down here. Written down nicely, I think. Judaism defines love as the emotional pleasure one experiences when he or she finds virtue in another human being and identifies that person with those virtues. Shall I read it again? Did I read it too fast? We define love as an emotional pleasure one experiences when he or she finds virtue, when you see the good in other people, in another person, and identifies that person with those virtues. Doesn't sound like what Disney was telling us.
There's probably a lot of false alarms there. In a way, it kind of does if you switch it around. It does sound like Disney. Well, the person obviously might not be virtuous, but if you're feeling a certain way, you might say, "Oh, wow, this person's great," because they said.
Well, you're talking about naivete. You want to be talking about not to be naive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to talk about the idea of love. How is it possible to now forget about settling down with someone? How is it possible? Yes, Dan.
I don't agree with that definition. I mean,
Why not?
You can love someone, especially when it comes to family relationships of parents, siblings, children, when at times when you don't see virtue in them and you just love them.
Well, I would argue that if a parent stops seeing any virtue in their child, they'll stop loving them. I think that. Yeah, I'll put it up here. I raised this, whatever.
Not the Boston Marathon bomber, though. His mom's still going strong. Sorry. Yeah, she still some warrants out for her arrest, doesn't she?
You love unconditionally even when, even the alcoholic parent or the something who you might not like or you might, dislike or feel like they're making
Well,
mistakes.
you're saying that there's something called unconditional love? Or you're saying that it's innate that there's unconditional love? Or that's something that is a proper virtue to have unconditional love?
The point wasn't about it being unconditional. The point was that there are people you can love not because you see great things that
You can love them? I in my opinion.
you love what you can have the full range of emotion with from.
You think it's possible to love someone that you find no virtue in?
Not to have no virtue in, but to say that finding virtue in them and identifying virtue with them is what defines love. I don't see it that way.
And can you define virtue a little bit? Because if I were to, look at.
So this is a radically new idea, I guess.
No, it's not. You're
It's
looking
not.
at an objectivist way. Think of it as analogy would be the premise is that people are rational, economic factors, and you make a stupid decision, and someone says, "Well, you made that decision because some way you thought that it benefited you because actors are inherently rational." That's the premise. The premise in our scenario is that love is what happens when you find or discover or appreciate virtue in someone and say, well, we have these hard times together as a semi-cohesive or a disjointed family unit, but you wouldn't fall out of love unless you stop seeing virtue.
I agree. He uses lots of complex words. What he said is like this.
No.
Yeah? That's my argument.
So you're saying love is mostly admiration?
Admiration could be like you admire someone who's really special in some. So admiration, but it's something more where you want to act, you want to copy them, so to speak. You want to mimic them, you admire them. Yeah, but I think it's the recognition. Just you recognize the quality. I think the reason why parents love their children, sometimes you see. This might be a little vulgar, but there's the every 1,000 babies there's a non-cute baby.
No, every baby's cute.
Okay, so every 10,000. Oh well, but that baby's mother thinks the baby's the cutest thing in the world.
Of course.
But why? Because the parents see the virtue in the child. The parents
Yeah.
maybe they see themselves. However,
How can you see
The question.
no, I think it's the second you invest in something, right? Then it just the innate goodness of that thing is more recognizable to you.
And that's why I agree with the other definition of love, which is giving. When you invest in something, that thing.
Well, but that's not a definition. That's a cause.
I think if you go like a step deeper.
Because if you invest in something, then the virtue of that thing is more readily apparent to you.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's how you get it. Sorry.
No,
So.
I think if you go a step deeper than that, it depends. Because in order to find virtue in someone else, you have to recognize that virtue within yourself. I think there was something like that in the Torah.
So you want to say love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't love someone else.
Yes, and on top of that, it also like the value of the soul. I mean, if you're looking at it from maybe a deeper perspective, if you're looking at the virtue of the soul itself, never mind the person, never mind the actions, the fact that it's a part of Hashem and it's a part of God, then when you look at someone else, you see that they are part
But that's
of
a very
God.
spiritual explanation.
The whole
For people, for men who aren't spiritual. Is that more kids? Oh wow. Miriam put on a show here.
Oh.
She was like. So I think the argument here is like this. I think that
I was going to say the whole framework comes back to the question: does Judaism have an established definition of the virtues that we hold dear? I mean, I'd argue it kind of does. It's a pretty straightforward, but it's do you abide by those, or do you take it to your level and make it kind of subjective? Do you say, "Well, I can't find virtue because I don't agree with that principle"? You know, how is this?
No, I wasn't saying I don't agree with that. I was saying that if you look as a virtue as being part of God, as a virtue, because God is all that's right.
well, so that's how you're about to love everyone.
I think there's certain universally acceptable virtues, and if you care to disagree, I would think that you have some kind of problem seeing the proper way things are.
Wait, so you're arguing that it's subjective. What is good, what is bad?
I'm actually personally in favor that it's objective. That Judaism teaches specific.
I think the formula is subjective, but maybe the qualities, the character in someone else is subjective to. Means. Let's just recap here for a second. I think we're getting a little too philosophical here, and I kind of like that.
It's abstraction and fragmentation. Like I feel like
Yeah,
the way
you
you
have
love
to-
a parent or a child or a sibling, it's to love the whole person, and to fragment that into that you love it just because of this virtue or that virtue.
Yeah, but
You love these people
Just as far as
because they're your child.
yeah, but what happens when a child is estranged? God forbid. But someone who's angry, a teenager is angry at his parents. What do you tell them? Well, look what your parents did for you. Your parents raised you. Your parents gave their life up for you. The parents, I heard a rumor that children wake up at night. I wouldn't know, right? But
It's also grow out of the face. It's more of like hormones.
yeah, allegedly parents wake up for their kids at night. I don't know. I never experienced it, but it's just a joke. Yeah. But that's what you tell them. Why? Because you're trying to awaken that recognition of virtue in their parents. And you say, oh my God, my parents really did sacrifice so much so we could go to college. Or our parents really invested so much so I could have whatever it is that I have. Or tried to inculcate within me certain characters, certain qualities. So when a child recognizes the good, and the point is that we don't really know why we love. That's why we're trying to break it down to the mechanical level. But
In loving, you can find these virtues, but I don't think seeing those virtues is what defines love. I think it's kind of a side effect that comes with it. Not the defining thing is love is.
So what would you say love is? Or you don't know?
Is there a defining thing necessarily?
I think when dealing with Torah and Judaism, it's kind of a moral absolute.
No, but the exact the exact formalization of the definition is, I think there is some wiggle room. But maybe even if you're unaware of it, that's the point. It's possible you don't know why you love someone. You're unaware of it. It's an emotion. It just,
I don't think it's an emotion.
You agree it's an emotion. You don't think it's an emotion. So what is it? So what is it? It's just some...
I think it's a whole... I think like the emotion can be some part of it, but you can still love someone while having the full range of emotion of liking or being in love or disliking or being angry at or having the full range. So love is more of a all-encompassing...
But you want to argue that you could love someone that you don't find any positive character in? Yeah, awesome.
Asking us to love him and love our neighbors. And if you think about God having created all of us in his image, right, and we're all a reflection of God in a way, how are we supposed to love God when we in theory don't know God? We don't know what he looks like, we don't know what he's pictures.
Well, that's the point. It's exactly the point. And actually, this is already this Sifri, which is one of the Talmudic era a book written 2,000 years ago, and it says, "How do you love God?" It says, "You can't love God. You have to love God. What God does for us, right? Yeah, you have to love your God. Vahavta. Exactly. How do we have?
How are we expected to love God?
Well, that's the same question, but the argument is that just like the Torah can, in a just fashion, command us to love our fellow, because what it's really commanding us, in essence, what it's really telling us, seek out the virtue in someone else, right? Like Michelle explained, it's hard, we're not accustomed to look for the good in other people. When someone else does something bad, we automatically attribute it, how do you say attribute? Attribute it, right? We automatically attribute it to their negative character. But when they do something good, right, it's hard for us to come to the same conclusion. Oh my gosh, this is a good person who has positive qualities. What the Torah is telling us by loving someone else, it's saying we have to reframe the way we view other people. We have to seek out the good and not get bogged down or caught up with the bad, and accord for other people the same immunity we give ourselves by trying to justify and rationalize our actions and saying, well, that was out of character. I did when I do something bad, I'm very quick to justify and rationalize. Well, give other people the same immunity. When I do that,
Even serious.
well, so that's the Hitler question, right? We're talking about 98% of people. That's of course not. There's some things, people that are murderers or people that are rapists or people that do really bad things. We don't need to love those people. But we're talking about the average person that has a collection of good and bad. Everyone has a collection of good and bad. You could be miserable, and I know someone personally that always sees the bad in other people.
No.
Always. So there could be someone who's like a tzaddik, someone who's like a righteous person who has like no flaws, and they find the flaw, boom, and that person is just done for them. And these people have no friends. Because every person they meet, to them, is just a collection of evil. And that's how they view it. And there are those other people that have no enemies or love everyone because why? Every person they see, they just somehow the bad of that a person doesn't stick, and the good is just soaked up. And the Torah is telling us, love thy neighbor as yourself, reframe the way you view other people. Seek out the good. Don't get bogged down. Don't get caught up. Don't dwell on the bad. If you do that, by virtue of that, right, you'll love that person. If that doesn't agree.
It's like you're accepting the bad behavior.
Not accepting bad behavior, but but you're willing to give them the same flexibility you give yourself. Everyone has positive characteristics. Everyone has good things that are admirable about themselves. And everyone has things that they would wish they hadn't have. Everyone has a mix. We're all a mixed bag. Everyone.
Good job.
Right? That's the human condition. Right? We're a collection of positive and negative character.
Mostly positive.
Mostly positive. And our job is to make it all positive.
That's right.
Right? But when you see someone else, you have a bunch of options. Right? You could choose to focus to recognize the negative. You could label the person as being X, whatever you discovered the negative character that they have, and voila, you won't love that person.
I don't think that's the definition. So I think the opposite of love is indifference, and I think you can seek out and find all sorts of positive virtue in someone that you're indifferent to.
I don't think it's recognize the absence of.
What?
I don't think the opposite of love is indifference.
So maybe we have to add another qualification that you have to care about other people.
I think you can.
Someone that you care about, someone that registers on your radar. Maybe we do have to.
You can seek out all these virtues in someone that you don't love, that is just an indifferent stranger. To
But
and you can love someone even seeing huge mistakes that they make, or seeing.
Most certainly, I would argue that nobody knows someone's flaws more than their spouse. Correct? That's likely, right? Okay.
And recognizing the flaws in ourselves.
But how can you go on loving that person who you know has flaws? Because you're not dwelling on it. Right? You're not identifying that person with that negative character. Why is she suddenly so gregarious? Suddenly she's so gregarious.
Well, one thing, I don't know if this complicates things or is kind of tangential, but if you look at people's emotions, look at positive and negative affect, negative emotional states, they aren't poles on the same stick. They're completely separate. So when you're doing the science on it, you start computing how they relate. It's not like love, hate. There's these positive ones, and it goes from very positive to 0, and then there's very negative, and there's negative to 0. The positive and negative affective states actually don't match. On the same characteristic.
Yeah, but that's similar to what Dan was saying. That there's something else. There could be a difference, right? Is that what you're trying to say? Sorry.
Well,
Throw down. I love her so much.
I would say that when you look at science, like the idea of having, I feel positive about something, I feel negatively about something. They're not polar ends one on the other.
Well, but
they actually
why are they not polar ends? Why are they not part of a spectrum? How do you feel about someone? Well, I really like them. I like them. They're just a good person. Someone I like. Like Jason, I like you. I love you. I do. Right? No, because I see that I'm sure you have negative character. I'm sure you do.
You can ask my wife about that.
I'm sure you do. I don't know of any. If someone asked me right now, can you tell me what Jason's negative character is? I wouldn't have an answer for them. But I might have an answer if someone asks, well, tell me something good about it. Right? You want me right now?
No, right. I gotta get my head to the door.
I wrote a letter for someone today. Someone today asked me, with someone who's trying to get a conversion, comes to some of my classes, and he needs letters of recommendations from some rabbis. I said, fine. And I really wrote a really nice thing about that he's well balanced, and he's stable, and he has he's keen insight, and he's impeccable character. But I could do the same thing for you right now in front of everyone. But if you recognize the good in someone else, you'll love them. That's my argument. I know Dan doesn't agree with me. Well, maybe we come to the truth here. Maybe we could negotiate here. Maybe if you care about other people, if they register, because you said, well, you could be indifferent. Maybe you have to care about other people, and you have to focus on their positive character, and you have to label the person, identify the person with the positive characteristics that they have. Then would you agree that you would love them? Can we try? Can we do an exercise?
Sure, yeah.
Why don't we do an exercise, and then we'll come back next week and we'll see the findings.
But I don't know. I still think it goes deeper than that.
For sure it does.
Because I see his argument, but it's like if you value life and you see life as being part of the soul and being a part of God, which is a virtue, then whoever you look at, you will value their life. You will see that their life has a purpose and virtue too.
But Michelle, maybe we could argue that it's even deeper to say, well, not a generality. Well, you have a soul, so I must love you. So it doesn't matter anything about you. You have a soul. They'd say, no. It's more than just a soul. You have this quality, and you're a nice person. You're a kind person. Well, it's someone that you will like.
But that takes
Well, there you go. That's you have a.
But it has to start from somewhere. So it starts from.
So you're talking about loving humanity.
Yeah, so it starts from that, and then you spend time to know the person, get to know, and then you see their virtues. And I don't know.
Well, I would agree. Now, I would even argue. Ready for this? And this is something that I heard from my oldest brother. And no, not the one that you know, the oldest brother. But he quoted in the name of my grandfather, picture in the back, who said, this is to be totally out of character for me, because it's so spiritual. I try to be practical. But he said that our soul, the Talmud tells us very strange thing about our soul. Our soul is hewn, how do you Hewn, cut out of the throne of the Almighty. That's what it says. What that means, obviously, is something which is, not to be understood in simplistic fashion. But what my grandfather said, allegedly, according to my brother, which I trust, we know that there's different, that we talk about, like during the prayers in Yom Kippur, we talk about the midot of the Almighty, the characteristics of the Almighty. And he says that every soul is a collection of the characteristics of the Almighty. So when someone acts in a certain way, inherently, it's innate. You see from kids, 2 kids from day one, they have different character. It's obvious. You ask any parent that has more than one child, they'll tell you that from the beginning, you could tell that they're different, right? Character is innate. Well, why is the character innate? It's not just what we're learning from other people. It's our soul, because it's our soul's certain part, has a certain spiritual roots that contributes to our character. So I think what we're saying is really the same thing.
The caring word is important. I feel like love is on the axis of caring and feeling of attachment versus indifference, whereas I feel like there's a totally separate axis that's thinking.
So maybe we're assuming that you develop opinions about other people. If there's someone that you feel like is just such a wonderful person, why would you not have a certain emotional on that axis, and a certain emotional feeling about that person? Doesn't make any sense. If someone that you see just only beautiful qualities about them, it seems reasonable to argue that you would like that person. You would love that person. You would have positive emotional responses to that person.
To me, it's separate. Mother Teresa or someone who does these amazing things could be on this axis, but the alcoholic father, the troublesome child who you love and feel.
Yeah, but you love that. You love the troublesome child because you still see the good in him, right? To quote the 1937 classic, "There's no such a thing as a great kid," right?
See as much good as
Boys Town.
But you love them because they're
Spencer Tracy.
And because you love
There's
them,
no such a thing as a bad, because you see the good in the child, and even though there's a facade of the troublesome child, you still see the good. You know that the kid still has virtue in your eyes. We're not going to agree on this, though. And the argument would be, just to bring it full circle, is that perhaps even in our most intimate relationships, this is also true. Right? The better you get to know someone, right, the more you're going to find out about both the positive and negative of that person. And therefore, there is a likelihood, or it's in all likelihood, there's going to be a shift in one direction or the other as to your emotional feelings about that person. So it's possible that the more I get to know someone and I discover the dark side or the negative character that's just inherent, or that the inherent negative character that we all have, and then I might fall out of love. I might say, "Whoa, well, this is too much for me. I didn't know that the person had this character. This is not for me." This is where you fall out of love, right? You fell in and you got trapped, and now you're out. You're free, right? Right? That makes sense. But if you're constantly focusing on the positive, you're dwelling on the positive, you're identifying the person with the positive, and you're willing to every once in a while, let some misdeed go by and not dwell on it, and not make a big deal out of it, and not label the person as "you always do X." Right? That's the worst thing you can do in a marriage or in any real relationship, because you're labeling that person. Why do you always X? It's much better to say, please don't do that, or I don't like it when you do that. The second you're labeling the person, in your head, you're you're identifying that person with that negative character. And that is slowly unraveling the it's awesome. It's awesome. Don't stop. You want one of those toys?
But grown-up size, right? Grown-up size.
Yeah, I was one of the.
Bro, what are you talking about? Grown aside. I mean,
Okay, so let me just recap what I said. I think it's an idea that's at least worth to consider, Dan, and everyone else, and myself. I'm with you all here. Consider it. Think about it. Chew it over. And the idea is that...
I have one.
Yes, shoot.
So I'm going to go out there, and as of today, I'm one of those haters. I'll always find something wrong with people, and I admit it. I'm really good at it. Right.
Melissa, what do you think about me?
You make beautiful children, do you?
But that's all from Chaya, so...
But if I go out there and I start actively seeking the good virtues in everybody, and I start loving everybody, and then I see all the good virtues of the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and I don't know, the guy that Josh gives, water and cereal bars to every week on the corner of 610. How do I explain to my mother that I saw good virtues in my life?
Okay, but because when you're talking about settling your life, this goes back to the session we brought earlier. When you're talking about settling down with someone for the rest of your life, there's more than just love or potential love to consider.
But I'm not saying love now, I'm saying the virtues.
I understand.
Not the virtues that I admire and I
Yeah, but there's
The whole package.
yeah, because it's when you consider making that important decision, it's more than just virtues. It's family. There's part. It's profession. It's what kind of life, faith. Those are all to consider.
Right. At what point do we make a differentiation between loving everybody, finding the good virtue in everyone, finding the good of God in everybody, and then finding the virtuous Jewish person that you're supposed to settle down?
So that is the question of how to date. So what I'll say real quickly is it's all about a roadmap. You have to ask yourself, okay, what's important? Well, there's some things which are universal. Well, if you cannot live the rest of your life with someone that you're not attracted to, correct? You cannot live with someone, right?
If he has a lot of money, a Black American Express can find a lot of happiness.
Black American Express?
Yeah.
What about platinum? No.
No, doesn't
Black
matter.
card doesn't have the same weight.
Anyone knows anyone with a black card? Awesome.
What does that mean?
Black card is like a special exclusive card. It's like $5,000 a year to be part, and like it feels really awesome. It's like if you can't afford a professional sports team, right? And you can't it's like an ego booster. It's like playing with the gun that we talked about earlier. It just raises the testosterone. Anyhow, but so every person has to make a list of priorities. What's important to them in life. We're just talking about one aspect of a relationship. There's multiple elements, and everyone has their own list of priorities. What's important to them? Now, you would assume, or I'm sure your mother would assume, that when you make those priorities, one of them would be that they're stable, that they're not in drugs, or that they have a plan, or there's someone that's part of the same. Not just someone that you love. You can love it. You love people. Well, why does love have to mean that you want to spend the rest of life with them? You can love everyone. It doesn't mean that you want to live with them the rest of your lives.
But with God, we're expecting it, right?
Oh, so like this. So we have to love everyone. What that means is we have to reformat the way we view people and their character, positive and negative. We have to love God. We have to try to find things that God does for us. See the virtue, so to speak, in God. Right? Ask yourself, okay, what did God do for me today that I should be thankful for? That He did out of His own kindness. Whoa, He made my heart pump 89,000 times. Pretty awesome, right? He made me breathe in my sleep while I was sleeping. I wasn't even aware, right? Those kind of exercises will bring you to love God. The similar exercises will bring you to love other people. And when, hopefully, all of us, when we're in relationships, loving relationships that we want to maintain, the greatest exercise that you could do is to remind yourself the positive character of the person that you love. dwell on that. Identify the person with that character. What you're doing is reinforcing the love, deepening the love, and preventing, God forbid, a tragedy that happens all too often. Right? When people label you're such a X, whatever that word is, you label that person, you identify the person with the negative character, and the love that you worked so hard to build can potentially be eroding, and that's very unfortunate. So, was it worth coming all the way from England to hear that? Oh yeah. You had to say that. That's an idea I want to share with y'all. I think it's this specific character ability of seeing the good in other people and seeing the good in God. I think in my opinion, it's the key indicator to love. It's also the key indicator to happiness. That's be the next time we argue about it. I would agree. I think that.
That's a very different topic.
Yeah, so we only talked today about love. I think it could be extended, and we'll talk about it maybe some other time. Anyhow, thank you all for coming. I love you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And yeah, and it's awesome.
It's good to be back, huh?
It is. It's nice. And was it nice? Good? Did you just say bye?